Strait of Hormuz, geopolitical pressure, supply, demand, disruption. The MOU between the United States and Iran. Strait of Hormuz as far as disruption, safety, mines. If you were to Google today all the keywords that most serious individuals are looking at online, predominantly most of what people are looking online today has to do with either investments or has to do with the war in the Strait of Hormuz. What that tells you is whatever that element that's being worked out, whatever's in that MOU, whatever is the final causation of a potential end to the war, has virtually everybody with a vested interest looking at success or failure of this agreement with the MOU between the United States and Iran. Now, we know, if you have any common sense at all, the MOU is going to be not taken seriously. It's not going to be signed or executed with intent. It's not going to be followed through with by the Iranian Republican Guard. It's not going to be something that is going to be honored by any stretch of the imagination. It never has been. But everyone who's evaluating it, who's trying to assess what's taking place in the Middle East and what's taking place in terms of global crude oil supply, they're all trying to gather the data they can to figure out which direction, whatever investment they made, whatever business they're in, whichever logistical, statistical, or analytical determination they've made, everyone's trying to figure out what that one single bottleneck is going to do to the global economy going forward. I'm a little different. I've already bypassed the fact that we're at war. I've already bypassed the fact that we've had a temporary supply disruption. I've already bypassed the fact I don't trust the MOU if there ever is one signed. That's really true. I also am a firm believer that it's going to take boots on the ground before it's all said and done, somewhere in the next 3 to 10 years, to go in and root out the final cause, the final core of the Republican Guard that may one day turn that country back over to its people. Now, here's what I look at. I look at pure economics, supply and demand. And again, doesn't matter where it comes from, doesn't matter where it goes. As a global consumer of fossil fuels and crude oil, what I'm mostly concerned with is what part of the economy can or cannot do without fossil fuels, right? So we start thinking about things like mining. Got to have it. Got to have the equipment, got to have the tires, got to have the conveyor belts, got to have the fuel, got to have the diesel, got to have the lights, got to have the electricity. There's a whole lot of parts of that mining process. You cannot do it without a barrel of oil or a molecule of gas. We have farming. We got chemicals, the tractor, the hoses, the hydraulic fuel, the diesel that goes in the tractor, the seeds themselves. Everything goes into farming other than the dirt is somehow directly tied to a use of, part of, or derived from a barrel of oil or molecule of gas. I could go through the list. I could tell you everything from aircraft, space, technology, every industry on the planet, including organic farms, are all going to have to use oil and gas. So if we give that as a determined fact, and it won't change because demand is going up, if the Strait of Hormuz becomes the jugular vein, and that's the main vein putting out 20% of the global crude oil from the Middle East, and it's been disrupted, and the reliability of that destination, that logistical strategic place called the Strait of Hormuz, is now uncertain. Not only today, the last 90 days, but probably is going to be uncertain for the next decade at least. Then the redirection of crude oil out of those producers in the Middle East, and they redirect it on land through pipelines, different ports, different oceans. They work their way out of it through capital expenses. It will diminish the importance of the Strait of Hormuz temporarily. And then people forget. People forget things like 9/11. They forget things like World War II. They forget things like the Vietnam War. Today, in the investment world, I talk about 2008 financial crisis, and I'm talking to a crowd of $1 million investors, and they look at me like I'm talking about World War II. They have no clue that we, 17 years ago, had money markets drop below par value. They forget that oil was actually at $145 a barrel and higher in 2008, and there wasn't a single war. That was an economic collapse. Oil fell to $32 like it is today at 73, and it rebounded right back over $100 a barrel within 12 to 24 months. See, no one wants to revisit history because that's history. No one listens to old people because they're old. I did the same thing. I didn't listen to my 90-year-old grandfather. I didn't listen to my dad. I didn't listen to the elders around me. I thought I was young and dumb and had all the information and answers. Today, fundamentally, there's major concerns about the oil supply in the world for one reason. The last 90 days have clearly demonstrated that we have a supply problem. It's not a demand problem. We have a supply problem. The one thing I'm confident is today is 80 to 90% of every single modern society uses oil and gas for energy 80, 90% a day, 89%. Out of the 80 to 90%, about 50% has nothing to do with transportation. Doesn't have to do with diesel, doesn't have to do with highways, doesn't have to do with roads. So this figure 50-50. 50% is for transportation, 50% is for fertilizer and glasses and plastics and microphones and chairs and tabletops and carpet. However, I got something to tell you. Again, if it's a 50-50 split, but we have a growing population, a growing modernization, a technology boom like we've never seen before, and every component that is being developed in a modern world has an appetite even more ferocious than it was in the past 50 years. The consumption, the speed of the consumption, the volume of the consumption, we're at about 104 million barrels a day in output before the war. It's projected, and I don't know who makes these numbers up. They all just come up with crap out of the backside. But let's just say they're right. Let's say we're at 105 to 110 million barrels a day of consumption by 2035 or 2040. When I look back at IEA and I look back at the rest of these organizations, they're wrong about 98% of the time. So let's just use common sense today. Everybody's going to have more babies. I got grandbaby number 11 on the way. Everybody's going to buy a house, a car, a cell phone, clothes, shoes, asphalts, pavements, new apartments. The city's going to keep growing around the whole world. India's not going to go down in population. China says they are. Maybe they are. But where China goes down in population, other evolving countries and societies are growing. So the one thing I'm certain is, I'm certain over the next 10 to 20 years, the growth in fossil fuel oil and gas consumption will be up somewhere between 5 and 15 million barrels per day than it is today, if not higher. So if I think about the Strait of Hormuz, even if they are to curtail it and minimize the importance after the MOU signed and there's some kind of traditional stand down over the next 3 to 5 years, and it lasts, all the new sourcing of oil coming out of Venezuela and coming out of Argentina, coming out of Venezuela, coming out of Brazil, all the new sources, Guyana, all the new sources out there are simply new sources to offset depreciating, depleting, non-capital intensive efforts by the Middle Eastern countries and OPEC countries, as well as the fact that we have a much higher growing demand. I think demand is going to outstrip supply. It may be a changeover over the next 24 months, but each one of you, whatever country you're in, whatever job you have, whatever line of business you're in, whatever basic reason for listening to this, know one thing. Oil and gas is going to grow in demand. It's going to be tight on supply, and not a single producer in the planet is going to have more than maybe 90 to 180 days worth of supply in the ground. We're going to be living what they call point of sale. You walk in and you order your McDonald's burger and order French fries, and they put it in the system, and they make it, and they only have so many patties in the freezer, only so many buns in the rack, and they can only serve so many customers for the day. The oil and gas industry across the world is the same way. There's only so many soft barrels in those tanks, those pipelines, the refineries, and those ports. And if you shut that off 60, 90 days, as we just saw in the demonstration with the war in Iran, the global price for crude oil and natural gas can double or triple in a heartbeat. The question is, what do you do about it today? Today, what you do is you listen to all the pundits and all the arm waving, and then look at the facts. And do your research, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in UK, whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in the United States. We all are part of the same consumable market and the same consumers. We want to have a modern life. We want a better life. It starts with fundamentally cheap energy, but abundant energy. I will trade cheap energy for abundant energy, because if I don't have cheap energy and it's expensive, I'll have less demand, but I'm going to pay 3 times the price. What we need is reasonable cost with abundant energy from all sources. Unfortunately, oil and gas is the #1 source for energy today and going forward for my entire life. Thanks.